Good evening, everybody. I would like to call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Is there any additions to the agenda?
Madam Mayor, administration has no additions.
Thank you, Council. Could I have someone move the agenda then, please? Councillor Jessamine. All in favor? Carried. So, Sahari's going on at 8?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to call Staff Sergeant Deveron Diet or Dittmer? Dittmer. So Staff Sergeant Deveron Dittmer is our new Staff Sergeant, and we're very excited and pleased to have him in high level. So this is our council. And so welcome to our place. We're so excited to have you here.
Can I make it work? There we go. Yes, Tina and I are very happy to be here. Yeah, when I got the spot, it's another move, which we're not a fan of. At least we're going to be in a spot for a while. We had three really quick moves, really. So it's going to be nice to be able to stay for a while. So yeah, I recognize Mr. Langford from my Fort Vermilion days. Yeah, so Michael prepared the stats. Does anyone have any questions about this? I know he mentioned that the prisoners were sort of typical. I can't speak to that because I'm only here for 2 weeks before I transfer up. But if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer. If you have any questions about me, where I've been, and I've been more than willing to answer them.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I was raised in Manitoba, born in Alberta. I joined late in my early 30s. Always wanted to be a Mountie, and I worked in a welding shop for most of my life, and figured if I don't try, I won't know. So I tried and been in Alberta ever since. Started in Fost. When Fost got swallowed up by High Prairie because they were running resource issues, so I finished my tour there. Spent 3 years in Fort Vermilion. From Fort Vermilion, I went to a specialized drug unit for about 4 years in St. Albert. Then I went to Fox Lake. I stayed 3 years in Fox Lake. From there, I went to Milk River. So basically from the top of the province right to the bottom. Got promoted in Swan Hills. And then almost 2 years, I guess. And now I'm here in high level. I haven't been officially transferred yet. The phone call is supposed to be this week where they're going to tell me when the movers are going to come and all that, but it's not going to be much longer. So yeah. This gentleman behind me is Corporal Fast. He's the new corporal, and I asked him if he wanted to come along. So that's who's with me here. He's excited to be here as well. So
welcome to high level. We're excited to have you too. Pretty soon we'll have a full contingent. So welcome. And yes, council would have read your report. So council, do you have any questions of the staff sergeant? We'll let you go easy tonight.
Sounds good. And don't be afraid. If you have questions, my door is always open. I like drinking coffee, so we can always have a coffee and chat. So yeah, very happy to be here, and thank you for making us feel welcome. So
don't tell me that, because I'll be on your doorstep all the time.
That's all right. That's all right. Thanks, guys.
Tim Hortons or Starbucks?
I'm a Tim's guy.
Thank you for coming in. So the minutes of our February 27th meeting. Is there any questions about those? If none, I will have someone accept them, please. Councillor Anderson, all in favor? Carried. I'm sorry about my report. I've been really busy. And I didn't have time to do it. So on March 1st, I was at an executive meeting for our Community Rail Alliance. March 8th, we had another meeting. We met with Michelle Evans of Prairie Cans. And she feels that our work that we are doing is very valuable. And she gave us a list of people that we need to meet with when we're in Ottawa. RMA is next week, as you well know, and there is a room. I guess none of us are going, but CRA has a room there. And Minister Dreeshen, Minister Horn, and Minister Jean are confirmed to be there to discuss with the executive what we have been doing. And the same will go for AB Munis the next week. There will be actually a morning meeting and an afternoon meeting. They have not been confirmed yet. And the MLAs have not been confirmed other than Minister Schultz. CRA is asking that only one counselor from each community go. So I guess that puts you in the driver's seat, Deputy Mayor. I won't be there, so if you want to turn it over to somebody to go to the afternoon or the morning meeting, by all means. Yeah, I will when I get them. We're pretty slow to get details. CN meeting, there is CN executive flying in from Toronto and from Montreal and from Edmonton, Calgary area. The meeting's going to be in Peace River between the 11th and 14th. They haven't pinned a date yet. 1 to 3 counselors. If there's 3 people that want to go down to the Peace River meeting, by all means. And we just have to kind of, so that they can get a room that will hold everybody. So if anybody's interested, please let me know. I will know the date probably next week. On the 9th, I met with Alan Bell from TOCO, who's also the new board member of FRIA. So I put some bugs in his ear about our multiplex, our multi-purpose center. I met with the RCMP. Today I walked for the March for Justice with for Rodrika Ribbonleg with Little Red River. They are walking to Peace River, and court is on it's going to be a 9-day court. And then I met with CRA again this afternoon. So if there's any questions, let me know. I will, when I get all the details, I will send them to you, Clark, and then you can send them to the deputy mayor. All right, can I have someone accept my report, please?
I can do that.
Councillor Welke, all in favor? Carried. Deputy Mayor.
Technology is
Now you guys will be reminding me.
The only meeting I have to report was the one we just concluded with Northern Rockies Regional Municipality, the Deneta from British Columbia, Mackenzie County, and the town of Rainbow Lake.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Anderson. Oh.
Pay attention. March 1st, I attended the Golden Range Society monthly meeting, or I guess it's every 3-month meeting now. So that was after their AGM. So they had a fair discussion on some of the stuff that they want to do in the next year. The only one I can think of offhand was in April, they're gonna have a spring supper. And I'm not sure the date. I want to say the 15th, but don't hold me to that because I'm not sure that's the date. Then they got some other things and their regular stuff like their Saturday pie days and that type of stuff is still ongoing. And March 13th, so today I also attended the meeting with the Northern Rocky Regional Council. That's all I have.
Thank you. Counselor Jessamine.
On March the 8th, I attended our high-level Community Policing Society monthly meeting. It was a very productive meeting in that we're starting to talk about the transition that will take place with the society with victim services as we have a year next year in April that transition will take place. So working through that, which is kind of is sad for the group, but will allow us to focus on the Child Advocacy Center, which we were excited to find out that we've received funding for 5 years for the
Wow.
center. So that's really exciting. So we are moving forward with that transition and developing more services for this Child Advocacy Center. And that's all I have.
So after 5 years, will you have to start fundraising yourselves?
Well, we hope to, well, that's a long ways away. We hope to see regular funding available at that time. Our partners are pretty excited with this center. It is one of the most northern centers in all of Canada. So this is kind of groundbreaking. So we have some good relationships and partnerships and we only see positive going forward. So.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Any other questions for Counselor Jessamine? No? Counselor Lambert. I did. Oh.
As Deputy Mayor said, besides the meeting we just had a few minutes ago, I have nothing else to report.
Okay, thank you. You were busy at the hockey game, which I'd like to send out a shout out to our U15 team and congratulations to them going on to provincials this week. Did I turn you off? Counselor Lebron.
Okay, so on March 1st, I attended the high-level library board meeting as well, and we discussed our MOU. On March 2nd, I was attending the municipal corporate planning, finance planning training course, as well as March 9th. And on the March 7th, attended a meeting for the film task force with Councillor Wilkie.
Oh, congratulations on your startup.
It wasn't official startup yet. We just had a pre-meeting.
Oh, just a high level talk. All right, we'll await the details. Counselor Welke.
So I'm a little thrown off that red means you're live. 'Cause
Yeah.
normally it would be green.
Yeah.
And red would mean you're safe to mumble whatever you like without being overheard. But anyways, that aside, on March 7th, I had an FASD Society housing meeting. This was a special meeting called with a consultant that we have hired now to look specifically at the housing unit with the society and what the capacity is and capabilities of it. There's been a lot of challenges in the past with what's reasonable and possible with the site as it exists and the numbers and and clientele that can stay. So we have a consultant now to help work through that, so we don't run into any problems of creating a you know, a housing situation that's not really sustainable labor wise, or you know, make sure the policies are in place and everything to properly have a housing program. So that was on the 7th. And then I will touch briefly on the meeting. Councillor Lebron, was that the 8th? The 8th? Okay. So as Councillor Lebron stated, it was not an official meeting because we have not been assigned our administrative support yet, but it's something I really wanted to get rolling with the TV and Film Task Force that was created a few months back. The members that are involved now, we all got together for an informal talk on, and we're all ready to go officially. So if I could just make a point of that to administration. I'm not sure what the protocol or procedure is for then officially moving forward with meetings. Excellent, because we didn't take very good minutes. I'd also request maybe a redistribution of the links and documents. There was a document that had some internet links for resources pertaining to the task force. It was a lot of the Alberta film and other, it was some research that, you know, we all have to do some homework on to, you know, we don't want to reinvent the wheel here. We were kind of discussing that at the meeting as well. Like there's a lot of good initiatives in other places, and we're going to look at those. So when we initially had talked about this task force, administration had distributed some resource links.
Yeah, there were some links in the package.
Yeah, I did forward the initiatives that Ready had taken on to the other members. And so there's also, you know, some legwork done with Ready as well with, you know, with regards to this, you know, promoting our region for TV and film. So we'll, you know, look at that and, you know, and also reach out to those other groups that have been doing work in this area as well. So. And then thirdly, just the meeting earlier today with the rest of council with the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality in BC. Who I feel was a productive first meeting for, you know, discussing the relationship between our areas where we're kind of cut off from each other without direct access, and that was a big part of the discussion. So it was a good talk we had with them, and that's all I have to report.
Any questions from Councillor Wilkie? None? Thank you. Could I have someone move the reports, please? Deputy Mayor? All in favor? Carried. Council's action list, is there any questions? No questions? Could I have someone move it, please? Trying to get my peripheral vision going. Councillor Lebron, all in favor? Carried. Upcoming events. Any questions on the events?
Madam Mayor, just a note, your future ones will contain months into the future as well.
What, pardon me?
We'll add more months
Oh,
on
yeah.
the next one.
Okay. The monthly report from administration, or did I skip one? Oh, yes, a motion to accept the upcoming events. Councillor Anderson, all in favor? Carried. So 10-3. Monthly, I can't read this because it doesn't have the little numbers on it. The monthly report from council or from.
Madam Mayor, council is free to ask questions of any of the senior management.
Yes. Deputy Mayor. Sorry.
My questions for the CAO, just with regard to NAV Canada's plans. It seems that we run into this every few years again. I had read somewhere that they're actually looking at closing Lights Service Center or specialists in Peace River. And I'm just concerned that if they are looking to downgrade our service once again, that this is start of the slippery slope. I see on here that you've are looking for feedback from users at the airport, but are we putting out a broader survey to the community and reaching out to the county as well? And, you know, it's not just us, it's, you know, medical evacuation, charter services, scheduled services. I just would hate to see us lose that because it's such a vital thing for a huge region of the province.
Madam Mayor, my conversation with NAV Canada was that they have no intentions of decreasing past the 11.5 hours per day, 7 days a week. They're doing that solely for staffing purposes. That allows them to staff 2 individuals on the day over those 7 days a week. So yeah, we could definitely extend that out. We've done an informal reach out to the airport users on our list, but we could, yeah, we have till the April 25th. But to give council a little better feedback from the broader region, we'll reach out to the county and some of the other users. We can even put it out on social media that if anybody has any concerns. And yes, to the deputy mayor's first question, that their plan is to close the Flight Service Center in Peace River. They recognize High Level's unique geographic location in that if this were to close, that leaves a huge gap in Northern Canada with no personnel on duty.
So we did a high level consultation with NavCan. Isn't this just a continuation of that?
They got interrupted by COVID.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we did contact and we did have discussions and we did plead to them. So
they seem to come around to this every few years, and I just want to make sure that we're on top of this, because if they are reducing the service or if they were to look to eliminate it, getting that back would be next to impossible, I think.
Oh, it wouldn't. They replace it with an automated system and we'd never see personnel here again.
But we were on their list the last time around to go to that automated system.
and we pled
And we've had to do this.
the most
How many-
northerly fire base, activities. So
No, but we've done this how many times over the last?
every 3 years.
Every 3 years, yeah.
Anyways, I'm gonna mute you now. Under the Alberta Association of Community Peace Officers, it says we may need to revise the MOU with K Division for RCMP AFRAC inoperability. Can you explain that?
Director Gavin?
A comment that was made at. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bit of
Sorry. Okay. It was a comment that was made during the presentation from the Government of Alberta Solicitor General, just around there being certain language in the MOU that specifically describes this communication between the two. I think we are mostly covered, but we are just doing another review just to make sure. We signed our new MOU just last year. So it's not something that's been in place for a long time. The previous one expired, I think, in August. So we're just going to review the language, make sure everything's captured, and if it's good, then we don't need to touch it. If it's not, we'll have to do some quick tweaks and get that reviewed and approved by both parties.
the province did include it in our last MOU, but we'll just double check the language in that.
Okay, and the other thing that I was wondering about was they're advocating for the Solgen to add bylaw enforcement activities to the CPO appointments. Is this for the CPO 1 or 2?
So the CPO2s, which we currently have one of, is something that they are restricting down to really strict admin-based duties. So technically having CPO2 in the field is not occurring anymore. We currently have an extension on our CPO2 appointment until the end of March this year, pending a final fitness test that's happening this weekend. So
You're cutting out.
What this is talking about here is making sure that bylaw enforcement activities are included in the CPO appointments. And this has come about from a fatality that occurred a few years ago, where a peace officer was performing bylaw enforcement duties and they lost their life. And the province wasn't liable because they were a CPO performing bylaw enforcement. So they're advocating to have that change to make sure it's included in their peace officer appointments.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions from council?
Madam Mayor, just a quick note on the communications section and back to the whole airport topic. Can we get our hands on that new feature in that magazine when it comes out for distribution? It would probably be a great story to help promote our airport.
Yes, I believe that is coming out in April. So we'll see about getting our hands on some copies for it.
Good, thank you.
Anything else from council? Could I have somebody move the council reports and administrative reports? Sorry. Councillor Jessamine, all in favor? Carried. New business RFD memorandum of understanding with the library.
Madam Mayor, Director Rolfe will address that issue.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
So in September 2021, we had renewed our MOU with the library. At that time, there was some minor changes on both sides, and the library administration and board and the town administration were in agreement, brought it to council, and it was put through. We wouldn't have looked at the MOU quite this early, but with the increase in funding, council had asked for us to provide, if we could, some sort of sustainability for 3 years. So we thought we would add the funding into the MOU and at that time revisit it. There was a couple of changes that administration was looking at that time. We had a few issues with rooms here and there. We didn't want the program room utilized anymore. So we had a few changes, gave the changes that we had wanted to look at to the library administration for them to review. They had some changes. We got together and met and went over them. There was some that I didn't know that would work within our operations. I did reiterate with them that I'm a liaison. It's not for me to make an opinion one way or the other. Brought the changes back and met with the CEO and Director of Finance, went over them. And some of them we didn't feel were ones that we were in agreement with, which I let the library board, or not the library board, the administration know. So I sent back the MOU with the changes we thought. And again, the library administration had asked me the same questions over again, one of them being why the program room is not in the MOU anymore. And again, I explained that we've really expanded our before and after school program. One of the things that we do within our program room now is we also have an inclusive care part of it. And the part of that is they've really suggested to us not to make many changes within our license program. And with it being fully subscribed, we really felt that we didn't want to rent that room out anymore, that it's being fully utilized for town programs. That was one of the changes. One of the things the library had asked for at that time was they wanted full use of our town staff room. I spoke with the CAO about this, and we really felt that to have other staff aside from town staff within our facilities where there's a lot of confidential items that go on, they would have access to like all our areas in this per se, if they were allowed back there, and we would have no jurisdiction over them. So the CAO, who is given by council the right to operate all our facilities, he felt that we would have another group in there that we couldn't say like, hey, like, what are you doing? You can't do this, or whatever the case may be. And their issue with confidentiality. So we didn't feel that that was where we should be going with the operation. There was other items like that. For instance, a good request, the library had wanted to know if they could be part of our health and safety committee. Thought it was a valid request, but again, it came down to confidentiality. A lot of the items that the health and safety committee review and go over, they didn't feel that they wanted like library staff or not town staff to be part of. At that time, they offered that if we had wellness initiatives, vaccination clinics and that sort of thing, we'd be happy to invite them, put that in the MOU. But we didn't feel that them being part of the library health and safety committee would be appropriate. The health and safety coordinator offered to help develop a safety committee for the library, maybe help them with hazard ID and that type of thing. Anyway, so we didn't come to an agreement on everything. And after that, the library administration developed an MOU with items they felt would be appropriate and had it passed by the library board. And so our suggestion is now, because it seems like it's kind of morphed into this whole other agreement, that we'd like to look at just going with a straight lease. There's a couple other items in there. For the financials, the operating grant from the province has increased by an additional $10,000. I don't know whether council may want to look at decreasing the amount we're going to give them by the 10,000, or to go ahead and give them the additional 10, like one way or the other. And also I've included the overall budget for council, because I wasn't sure if because we have some new council members as well too, whether they're aware that in addition to the amount we give them for operating, we're also paying the Peace Library system and on a debenture for when they develop the area there that the library is currently in.
Council, do you have any questions? I don't understand why we're getting rid of the MOU and going to a lease.
We thought it might be cleaner to just go with a lease, because as far as from the act and regulations, we're not obligated to give everything that's in the MOU. Like I said, it's kind of morphed into more. The lease is like just a separate, just for they have that area that they operate in, and that's clean. And then we have a resolution as to the funds we give them every year.
So what's the difference between the MOU and the lease?
We'd be, with the lease would just be for the area that they're using.
And the MOU, isn't it just for
The
the
MOU has in it, as it currently stands, that what the library board has presented, it includes access to all the building, to all our rooms without any charge. It allows access to our staff room. It allows a person on the library committee to sit on our health and safety committee.
So
yeah, there's a lot of other things.
They had access, we've had an MOU with them. Have they had access to the staff room?
No, they have not.
So why would that change?
This is what they've requested, what was passed by their board.
Could we not say no? Council says,
Yes.
no, you can't.
We could go back with an MOU that goes down to the items that we think should be in it.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
I just, like, I think this is a hard line to say, no, we're going to lease these 2 rooms to you and you're not welcome anywhere else. That was kind of my feeling when I read this. And I just don't think that's very friendly for, because they are not town staff, absolutely, but they're still part of this building and we have to get along with them. And I don't know what the rest of council felt. Oh,
Button. There we go. No, I agree. It seemed like it was fairly we went, there was some negotiations back and forth by the sounds of it, but then all of a sudden, all the negotiations stopped and all that they had is taken away from them. It just seems a little aggressive to me, that's all.
I understand the programming room and that not being available to them, the staff room. I understand that. Maybe it's because there's cross staffing, I don't know. But I understand, I mean, if they're not town staff particularly, but they are an arm of the town, they shouldn't be allowed in there. And I didn't think they had ever been in there. So that was just, oh.
Madam Mayor, this did go back and forth several times. We have basically said in no uncertain terms, we can't let you in the staff room. That gives you unfettered access to the administrative area of the town. And we had removed that from the MOU as we did access the program room, and yet we had it returned to us with that back in it. We've actually exchanged a number of these, and we do not seem to be making any progress with the library board at this time. And that's why a lease would still give them unfettered, they would have that access to that space. It would be their lease space, and they would just do it as a leasee. They can book program rooms just like any other society can. But I mean, we have lots of nonprofit groups use our program rooms on a regular basis. They just book through our booking system.
Councillor LeBron, were you part of this?
Yeah, so like what Clark said, there was a lot of back and forth in regards to the MOU. I feel like it would be beneficial for administration to meet with the board directly and speak with the board directly. I feel like there's some loss in communication in regards to some of these points that would be best addressed with a face-to-face.
Madam Mayor, that had been offered by administration. I'm not sure it actually got to the board.
I concur with.
Oh. You have to request permission to speak.
I concur with Mr. Lieberon. I think that I'll go a little bit further in this, that the library board sort of dropped the ball here in this negotiation, in that we allowed the manager of the library to do the negotiation where that shouldn't have taken place. And I think there needs to be that dialogue taken back to the board and the town to get a little better understanding of what goes on first before these hard lines get drawn. I really think that an MOU would work. It's just there's been a lot of kind of half truths and not all the information going back to the library board, I think. And it's been lost in that discussion. Reading through and listening to Ruth, I think there is room for discussion there, and things, will be more understood by the library board that isn't understood at this present time. So I would like to see that too. I would like to see the board, the library board, and the town administration sit down and have a discussion.
And absolutely, I had offered to go several times to be part of the library board and explain, and I was told no. So I certainly would have no issue. As I've explained several times, I'm a liaison. I'm just trying to explain all the information that's on here. The decisions aren't made by me. I bring them back to, if we can't agree on something, I bring it back to council, which is what I've done here. I've tried to lay out, I know it's kind of, it's hard to follow it all, but I've tried to lay out kind of all the different, like what the board was asking for, what we were suggesting, that sort of thing. It definitely becomes pretty convoluted after you've gone several times back and forth. The administration, whether it's a CEO or myself, or Jenna, would be more than happy to sit with the library board and discuss it. I guess one of the things, if we do table this or put this off, is that I know the funding for them, like They were needing, my understanding was like that their first quarterly payment. And we had been, the routine had been like towards mid-March, it would go in with regular quarterly payments and they would receive it in March, early April. I think that was becoming a bit of a hardship was my understanding. Our only issue with moving it up is we still don't have financials like for 2022. So if, I don't know if council wants to separately pass a resolution tonight just to increase it, even if they want to throw that extra 10,000 so that we can give them the increased funds and do it right away and then work on the MOU afterwards so that it's not an additional hardship. I don't know if council, what is your, would you pass this? Do you want to look at the MOU later? Do you want to pass the financials so that they don't have that hardship? I don't know if they have that hardship. I guess you would know. Like there are 4 parts to this. So we can break them off into different resolutions. And Ruth, your report's not hard to follow. It was very easy to follow. Thank you very much. But I just think that's a little hard lined. My personal opinion in the money that we've allocated them, we don't know if that 10,000 was given to them as a grant to buy books or computers or what. I think that should still remain in there. Maybe we take a look at their request for the 2 to 4% and say, look, you got your 10,000, you know, like maybe that should be enough for till the 20, you know, year 26 in the MOU when you negotiate it. That's just my opinion. I don't know what the rest of council thinks. But I don't think we take that $10,000 away just because they got $10,000. Oh, sorry.
So the 10,000.
Oh, but there.
Jan had his hand up first. So the 10,000, from my understanding, the funding that they received, that's part of a 5% top up. So the actual increase to their funding, I believe, was only 700, exact numbers away from here, 700 and something dollars. And then they were topped up with an additional 9,300 and something dollars. Because every library got the 5% increase. So if you didn't have the population base to get you to that 5%, they just topped you up. So this is going to be the only year they received that large sum of money. So I don't think it'd be right to hold back the 10 because they could potentially use this money to buy some new equipment that they need. As far as the MOU, I think we should push it off and figure out the financials part of it.
What's the rest of council feel?
Am I on? Well, 2 things. I don't have a problem with a lease versus an MOU. I think maybe discussions with this entity have been confusing a lot, and maybe something a little more straightforward would be good to have. I think that we know the relationship is going to continue, and so we don't want to hold up the money side of it. So I'm okay with clearing up the money details before negotiating the lease/MOU. My other question though about like them as an entity that leases space here, they're a little different in the sense that they're not coming in and just using part of the facility as a one-time rental, as a room, that sort of thing. It's actually a full-time program. So when it comes to things like break space and washrooms and that sort of thing, like what do they have within their own rentable space? Do they have anything to facilitate a completely independent use of what they're actually leasing?
Madam Mayor. So currently in the space, and I think Councillor Lebron went and walked through and discussed this with him as well. There is a washroom in the hallway across from the library. There is a room in the back that has a sink and a microwave and some other equipment in it. And then there's a fairly large room on the east side of their space at the back that currently I think they're utilizing as a reading room, but they've had that space and utilized it since they moved in the building. They've never had access to the administration portion.
Okay, so they can operate independently full-time out of the space that they're utilizing. Yeah.
The only problem that they're having really is with the program room because they, for running their craft programs and that they run there at the library, they're just curious as to where they're going to be able to do that. I mean, there are lots of spaces to rent in town, so that is an option for them. But I know that was one of the major concerns. So.
And part of that was because with the crafts, they wanted a room that had flooring. And so many of these rooms have carpeting in, including the library. So it was understandable that they'd want to use the program room, and having a washroom in the program room was good if they had seniors and that sort of thing, if they're doing quilting. So I totally understand how the program worked for their use. It was the changes the town made. And I sort of feel that the town's operations take precedence, and that our before and after school program has really, really developed, and that's where it stands. So
You're absolutely right. Like the town programs do take precedent. These are town programs that the council has asked for. So I understand them not being able to use the rooms that they used to use. But that's, like that, they have to understand that as well. Yes.
Okay. Maybe you can just explain. I'm just curious. I know Clark has tried to explain this to me about the program room. So the issue is that there's being used, 5 days a week during the day. So they typically look to use it after hours, correct? Like on the weekends or whatever. So the issue is what, the cleanliness, or that's what I'm understanding. So if they were to use it on a Saturday or a Friday night, Saturday, say, then it would have to be cleaned. Is that what the problem is for Monday, or?
that's part of it. And the other part was with our adding the inclusive care component of our program. So we have some children that have higher needs, and we've had some outside professionals come in and work with our team to sort of discuss the best ways to arrange our room, to run our programs, that sort of thing. And they've suggested the least amount of change helps to facilitate, to make things smoother for some of these children, as well as with, and maybe Jenna can hop in here, as well as with the license program. There's some specific things, like technically we're supposed to be signing people in and out of the room and that sort of thing. So there was a few other things, as well as, because we're starting in the morning now, we have someone there at 6:45 in the morning. So the Saturday might not be bad, or Sunday, but if we come in Monday and things aren't exactly the same, we have, one person by themselves at 6:45 in the morning, trying to scramble to make sure everything is exactly so. So it was a bit of a stress for us. And we just felt that because this program is fully subscribed and we were asked to do this, and it is a licensed program, and generally licensed programs, you don't have other stuff in the room. We flex on that somewhat too. And I would say we could probably flex, in the summertime and times when we're not using it anymore. But on a weeknight, definitely. So
these are weekend programs that they're running?
sometimes, yeah. So if it was like a Saturday, it wouldn't be bad, as long as we knew for sure everything was back the same. We'd have to, our staff would have to, we'd have to have somebody come in, whether it's a Sunday or whatever, to make sure everything was back to the same.
But if the library is running these programs, can't they run them, let's say, upstairs at the arena?
That's really hard for accessibility, to be quite
Oh,
honest.
yes, you're right. Haven't got the
There's
elevator in there
There's
yet.
schools, there's the village, there's other places
Yeah.
that could be utilized, but in all fairness, it's handy in the building. So I totally get the other side of things. It was just, it's hard for us as well. So
Okay.
So from my perspective, I don't think it really matters whether we call it an MOU, whether we call it a lease. I'm getting a sense that, we want certain things in there. They may want certain things in there. So I have no problem with what we're calling it, but I think we should leave this with administration to work with the library board and their staff to figure out something that works for both sides. I think the program room and some of the programs that we're running in there should be paramount to the library, and maybe they can renovate their space to try and have some area like that within the library itself. Having said that, I don't think we should hold up the funding part while we work this part out. I would like to see the funding released the extra 10,000 from the province, I have no problem with them getting that. Hopefully, if anything, it will reduce their request by $10,000 next year, or as Councillor Lieberman pointed out, you know, maybe they have something that they really need to address right away and they simply haven't had access to funding to do that. So I have no problem doing that.
Are you two down there fine with that? Okay, so let's make a new resolution. Yes. Oh. No, but
Conversation.
I'd like to listen.
That town administration meet with the library board and bring back a agreement or proposed agreement to council at a future date. And that council also provide the $192,711 in quarterly payments for the 2023 operating year.
Is that your motion? Deputy Mayor, all in favor? Carried. The Tourism Enhancement Grant.
Madam Mayor, Director Rolfe will also address that.
Got 8 minutes. I better be quick.
Yeah.
So we had 2 applications. One was from Watt Mountain Wanderers for $1,000 for their annual poker rally. The other one, this is the first time we've had that. So within our policy, we have a section that says that you can have a one-time grant for up to $30,000 as long as you provide a letter from your association and letters from the 2 hotel owners that are in the Partners for Tourism. The High Level Agricultural Society has done that within this application. So our administration is suggesting that we approve both of these. The only thing is, of course, is that we only put 30,000 in the tourism enhancement grant each year. So that would leave us a little bit short. So what we're suggesting is that we add an additional $20,000 into our operating fund for that year from the tourism reserve. So instead of putting the 90 in, we put the 20. And that still gives us some money left for grants for the following year.
Discussion?
Didn't we just discuss the budget for this at the last meeting? And we had said that by the end of next year or by sometime next year, we won't have any additional funding. So this is going to accelerate that.
This will definitely accelerate that. So we'll end up with about 55,000 for 2024.
That's why it's important to go back to. But this, I'll just speak on behalf of this. Like the grant application says, if you get 2 letters from the people that are partners in tourism, that they can apply for it. So,
You know, the only caveat that I would have on this is that can the funding be held until the project actually goes forward? Hopefully they'll get the balance of their money. They're halfway there, so they've got a good start. I just remember the Spring Fling Society and looking at a community center and all of the rest, that money just.
it didn't disappear.
No, I know, but it never went to the
No,
intended project and was donated to
Nonprofit groups.
within the community.
But the thing is, they were putting, I think I read in the letter that they were building part of it. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem like holding back part of it. You know, like as they build the building, if we give them a letter of whatever you call it, you lawyers would know. But I think I read in Jackie's letter that they would not have the full funding, but they were going to build part of it so that they could start using it.
Just looking at their budget, you know, the building is the biggest part, 461, but they can't do any of that without the cement footing work. That's 35,000. The electrical, heating, plumbing, Operational is all gonna come once the structure is there. So if anything, I suspect they'd be doing the cementing, some of the groundwork, which is 35,000. They already have more than enough in trust. Don't get me wrong, I think this is a fantastic project, and I really hope that they can put this together. I'm just thinking from the tourism part, if we're setting aside this 30,000 now, that may limit us on what we can do with our dwindling capital reserve in this project, that if it's going to take them a couple of years to build it, that maybe the town could allocate the 30,000 from somewhere else and still continue to use this from the tourism funding. That's all.
And where would we allocate it from?
In other words, I'm not disagreeing that the town doesn't support this, and I think it's a great project. And we are limited through this mode of funding to $30,000. Maybe there's a possibility the town has other contributions to make or whatever, but
Respectfully, I think we give them the 30,000. That's what it's there for. We still will have 54,000 next year for projects for people, for tourism. And our administrative staff is going to meet with the partners in tourism again. So I would say that because we have letters from both our partners in tourism and that's what they would like to see, I think we should honor it. Now. Not in the future. You were.
I agree with what you just said.
Anybody else have any thoughts?
I agree. I really like this project. I think any potential facility that has year-round use up here is excellent. They're already well on their way with their budget. I also agree with the deputy mayor that we would want to see them maybe at least break ground or something. And I mean, there's no reason why that money couldn't be sort of benchmarked for like a criteria of such. Like it's the town would be good for it upon such and such happening is a possibility. But also I think that it would be important to get behind this project. I think that facility up here would do nothing but good for our region.
You're on.
I make a motion that we accept alternative one.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The sustainability plan.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Mr. Miller, our architect for the multipurpose facility, has joined the meeting. And Ms. Gavin is also needed for the first item in camera if you wanted to lead community sustainability, because that's also her item. So
Okay.
Haley's presenting both the community sustainability and our first in camera item. If you wanted to go to Mr. Miller now.
Oh, okay. Who's doing that? You?
Mr. Miller is with Sahari, our architects for the multipurpose facility. He is our presenter under item 4.1.
So we're still expecting our Brent Banadagia from our subcontractor that did
He's
the
on there.
engineering. Oh, he's there now too. Okay, perfect. So we did have Zahari and Partners Architect have been working on this project with us for the last couple of years. Last year we had applied under the GICB for an exemption from the zero carbon, and we were not allowed that exemption. So we went forward and did a redesign of the building so we could meet the zero carbon. I've been working with both Lee Miller from Zahari and Brett for the last year, I guess. And they're here tonight just to present what the detailed design now looks like with meeting the zero carbon and what that's all about. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lee.
All right, thanks, Ruth. Just sound check. Can everybody hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a bit of a dirty joke someone played having this meeting on the day after daylight savings time kicks in. Because
Yeah,
I don't know
that's the way it is.
if everyone's as tired as I am, but I got 2 young kids as well, so maybe that's part of it. But so what I'll do is share my screen and just make sure that everybody can see. So this report or this presentation was put together fairly last minute. So it's not been tailored for you to read it per se. If there's anything you want me to zoom in on, I can do so. But at this point, a lot of the documents I'm presenting are stuff that has been turned over to the town and can be disseminated if they haven't been already. But to jump right into it, I thought I would just start by acknowledging the partners that we had worked on the project. So other than Saharian Partners, All North, 818 Studio doing our landscaping and civil works, Protostatic Structural, AME, who Brett is representing tonight, who are mechanical and energy consulting, Design Core Electrical, who had some input into this report as well, and our aquatic engineer. So just to touch base on project timelines. I'm not sure if there's any new members of council, but I thought I would just mention that the project was awarded August 2020. By November 2020, we delivered the schematic design report for what was then called the multi-purpose facility. And at that point, the plans were more or less set. By May of 2021, we delivered the design development report for what was then deemed the multi-use facility. And at that point, the renderings were produced for the project. Again, it's not meant for you to read this text. This is an excerpt from the DD report, if it's too small. But what we've done up to that point was essentially produce the renderings, the level of development to sort of take the project to the fundraising stage. And that was in May of 2021. And the costing was associated at this juncture as well. June to September of 2022, so now we're a year sort of after the fact, we worked with Ruth a little bit more, and the facility became the multi-purpose evacuation center, and I think that's still the current name. And what we did at that time was really just develop the plans and produce a set of plans that described how the building would be fit up during emergency response. So how many cots, where staff, where dining, and so that these sets of plans were done in that period of time, June to September 2022. So that brings us to November, roughly, of 2022. And the first document here that I'm just raising is the feasibility study. And so AME was contracted to just look at the Green and Inclusive Community Building Fund that the project was submitted for, to look at the feasibility of the zero carbon building standard, to see exactly what would have to happen in order to meet the thresholds for this funding. The executive summaries of what the grant really entails, and I won't get too into the details of it, but I'll just touch on what the high level requirements would be. And it's essentially your energy efficiency measures to achieve a 25% better performing than what is a fairly stringent National Energy Code for Buildings 2017 target. That's the minimum that you would have to achieve. The project would have to essentially be fossil fuel free above -10. So at temperatures down to -10, you have to run on electric heating systems, which was a departure from where the building was at the time of DD. There's a whole building air tightness testing, which is just a pressurization of the entire building to prove that it's airtight. And then there's also the carbon offsetting, which will be both in terms of operational carbon and as well as embodied carbon, which is two separate things that have to be addressed in the feasibility. So there's an outline of what were sort of targeted as what would have to change for this. So there was essentially changes to air handling units. There was a change to how those were specified and put onto the building. And beyond the mechanical changes, there were some minor changes to, say, lighting. And then there was the provisions for on-site renewable energy generation. But the basis of the study was essentially the DD building. So the building that was designed up until May 2021. So the building wasn't changed. There wasn't any change to the programming, the orientation, windows, or anything like that. And there were some reasons for that, essentially. But the building was fairly highly specified at that time in terms of very high performance glass that's already included. Fairly high performance envelope system was also included. And so those things weren't necessarily addressed in terms of needing to be changed in any sense. And the feasibility study basically came to the conclusion. I'll skip over some of these details about like refrigerants and things. If you want more details, Brett is well versed to talk about this stuff, and we can always circle back to these at any time. The other thing about the requirement or for the grant was that of what was titled the impact and innovation credits or pathways, there were 5 options presented, and you had to meet 2 of them. We had identified right away that using 100% electric wasn't going to work for this facility. And also the upfront carbon, the sort of biogenic or, the really progressive use of materials to actually like not just reduce carbon, embodied carbon, but actually use the building as a carbon sink wasn't going to be feasible for this type of project either. So that really left us with 3 of 5. And 2 of those were photovoltaic. So there's one for on-site renewable energy and there's one for building integrated photovoltaics. The other one is carbon, embodied carbon reduction, which was a maybe. The thought, though, was that if we were already doing photovoltaics, that we might as well sort of double up and hit it twice, do the photovoltaics for both of these options. And with this option, it gives high level an actual tangible benefit at the end. So you're not just sort of calculating carbon reduction. You're actually seeing sort of month by month, year to year return on being able to, get return on that investment that you've made into the photovoltaic system. So that was the chosen paths that we had agreed to. There's the summary of everything that had to change and some anticipated cost impacts. These will be addressed in the actual report. But essentially, the energy model was updated with our assumptions, and we moved from a sort of 18% at the time of design development up to somewhere in the range of 30%. Again, based on just sort of thumb into the wind what we were going to change to get this. And the target being 25% better, we were 30. So there was some confidence that we could at least meet those requirements. So this brings us now to February, which is just prior to the submission for the grant. And so this report now details all of the material that's been changed in terms of the specifications. And primarily it's a change to mechanical systems rather than self-contained units on the roof. It's a much higher efficient system. It's all connected with hydronic reheat versus just gas powered units. And so it's more of a whole building system that's being proposed here. Just don't know how much detail I'll go into this. But again, this report has been submitted. There are all sorts of results about sort of the targets and what's been achieved. And everything is generally good. We have to say that it is a carbon offset situation. So it's not a true net zero, that there's still carbon offsets required And those are calculated and presented in here as well. I think there's another requirement about the TEDI, which is thermal energy demand intensity. And it, as Ruth had sort of alluded to originally, when we were looking at the facility for net zero, it was a real challenge that the building is in a 7B climate zone and it's really close to 8, like 50-degree days. So it's almost in an Arctic zone. And so to hit the TEDI targets that were prescriptive would be really, really challenging. And so there's another path that essentially is, again, sort of a comparative path by breaking out the pieces, you know, the pool, the arena, and other spaces, to sort of do a piece by piece analysis of how the building is improving on those targets. Plenty of analysis. And then, of course, the energy model itself, which when it was re-specified and re-engineered, came out to 26.7% better than the baseline, which was still meeting the minimum of 25% better, which again is a very good energy result. So again, lots of details that we can get into if anyone is interested. There's tables here. There are all of the data that was plugged in for the energy model, the basis of the energy model. And the other piece then is really what's changed in the building. So other than the mechanical equipment, there's the requirement for on-site renewable energy. And so what was shown in the revised set of drawings that were repackaged and sent, including a new design development report, was the photovoltaic array on the roof, which is your on-site renewable kind of standard approach. And then there's the building integrated approach, which is actually replacing cladding with solar panels. This can be done in different ways, like putting it into spandrel, like the solid panels in glass, but we don't have a lot of spandrel panel on this building. So the approach was to carve out an area that sort of made sense, south-facing generally, it's a little bit southwest, and say, okay, that's what the area we're going to sort of give to our electrical engineer, and then also look at the roof. And so in conjunction with the report that AME did, Design Core also had an expert in solar analysis produce a study of, seem to be missing some data in here, these were populated, but an analysis of how much sunlight would be available for site. Yeah, something must have happened when I combined this report because I've lost all the data in here. But the point is that they analyzed the site. They looked at how many solar panels could be put on here with all the data of how much sunlight was available, and they calculated how many of these panels of you can see how many were available. We've only put the sort of the minimum that we would need to meet the threshold for meeting the 5% renewable. So that brings me to the end of the presentation for the net zero part. If there are any questions about the grant or about the mechanical systems themselves, Brett is here to assist with that. And otherwise, I'll turn it back to Ruth and to council if there are any questions.
Thanks, Lee. I'm just wondering if Brett can maybe explain some of the mechanical systems, because there was some pretty unique items that he was making changes there, and including having the heated floor and that type of thing working like well with the polished concrete we already had and that sort of thing. I don't know if he has a few minutes he wants to talk a bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So as Lee mentioned, we had this parameter from the zero carbon building standard of using electric heat when our outdoor air temperature is above -10, which obviously the first question that comes to anyone's mind is probably, well, are we actually going to be able to run that in a location like High Level, and what's it going to look like on our coldest day of the year? So rest assured, our backup systems are still what you would expect in a facility in Northern Alberta in very cold climate. So we still have a fully redundant heating system. The key change being we're implementing air to water heat pumps. So what essentially that does is It takes heat from the ambient air and it uses a compressor to produce heat on the other side. So it's a very efficient process. The only challenge that that process has is, of course, it can't operate in low ambient conditions. And it also can't produce very hot water. So, you know, in typical facilities or even the existing pool facility within the town of High Level, you'd be running pretty warm hot water temperatures to make sure your building's supplied with enough heat. But in order to utilize the heat pump technology, we need to bring those water temperatures down. So we looked at what could we do on the building side that is going to work really well with hot water temperatures that are lower and that integrates with the already existing architecture and design. And what we came to is for many of the common areas, so any locker rooms, library, major corridor spaces, we'd be proposing to have radiant in-floor heating, which would be tubing that would be running within the poured slab. So it is really great from a comfort perspective, works really well with the architecture because then we don't need to worry about other heating devices within the space. And it really, its only drawback is it doesn't respond super well to temperature fluctuations. So if you wanted that space to go from 21 degrees Celsius up to 23 degrees Celsius, that might take several hours, but overall it keeps the space really comfortable. So it's kind of a complement of a change that we had to do from the standard, but what ended up happening is we implemented a change that is really beneficial to the building overall. And mechanically, it works really well with the integration of heat pumps and lower temperature technologies.
Council, do you have any questions? No? Thank you.
Thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. It was very informative. I took lots of notes. Now I got to Google everything. Thank
Yeah,
you.
like I said, all the reports are available to read them in more detail than I've really glossed over here tonight. So hopefully if there's any further questions, we're more than happy to help.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Have
Thank
a good
you.
evening.
Good night.
Thank you.
I can forward those reports to council if they're interested in seeing any of them, the new detailed design and the zero carbon.
And the new price? What's the new price?
Well, we're looking at about 112. And part of that is because they did this as of February 2023 prices. So again, I hired the cost consultant separate from all this so we could make sure that we were looking after the town's best interests. And she had advised us that costs and variability had just escalated. And she said, if you're going by today's prices, it's regardless of any other changes you're making, it's already really gone a lot higher. So we're still looking within that at 40% mobilization, which I think is overkill, and another 10% in contingency. So yes, we're looking really high. The cost consultant did say if we're not looking until like next spring to build, it could be that those prices will come down again. But they did reprice everything at February 2023 prices.
Did you say 40% mobility? Is
That's
that
what they're using now for mobilization. So and 10% contingency, yeah.
Thank you. So back to the sustainability plan.
Madam Mayor, Director Gavin will address the sustainability plan request.
Hello again.
Hello.
So the Community Sustainability Plan was developed in 2010. Some of the councillors still on council today were part of the development of this plan. There was a review done in 2012 and a pretty big update done in 2016 as well. Administration's of the opinion the new strategic plan we have essentially replaces this. However, if there are any action items in the community sustainability plan that council would like to retain and move over to the strategic plan, we can certainly do that. This is a request to essentially repeal this, as we're not actively pursuing implementing this plan right now.
Did you all read it from cover to cover?
Several times.
So is there any questions on the sustainability plan? I can't recall, and I'm sorry if I'm asking this question, but did we have the health component in there about advocating for health like the sustainability plan does?
We changed it to professional services to kind of group it a bit more.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't have it at home, so I couldn't check it. Is there anything, did you want to say something, Deputy Mayor?
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? Carried. Yeah. Another report. Correspondence for information. Could I have someone move for information?
I'll make that motion.
Counselor Jesselman? All in favor? Carried. So that ends our public portion of the evening. Thank you for joining us and have a good evening.